Since the dawn of time, humanity has gazed upward not just in wonder, but in search of answers. The stars, those distant points of light, have whispered secrets to every civilization that dared to listen. Ancient astronomers, priests, and storytellers didn't just see constellations. They saw divine messages, cosmic maps, and echoes of their own myths playing out across the heavens. What if I told you these celestial stories weren't just myths but a kind of wisdom, a language of the universe passed down through millennia? Across deserts, mountains, and lost cities, our ancestors left behind clues, 30 extraordinary tales woven into the fabric of the night sky itself. Picture this, a Babylonian priest tracing the path of Venus, predicting the fate of kings. A Polynesian navigator reading the stars like road signs on an endless ocean. A Greek philosopher mapping the orbits of planets and seeing the hand of the gods. These weren't just random acts of imagination, they were acts of deep understanding, a celestial wisdom that connected humanity to something far greater. And here's the astonishing part. Many of these ancient insights align with discoveries we've only made in the last few centuries. How did they know? What were they seeing that we've only begun to rediscover? That's the journey we're about to take together, a voyage through 30 of the most profound celestial tales ever told. We'll unravel the hidden meanings behind Egyptian star clocks, decode the astronomical precision of Mayan temples, and uncover why the Vikings believed the northern lights were the armor of warrior spirits. Each story is a piece of a grand puzzle, a testament to humanity's relentless curiosity. By the end, you won't just see the night sky differently, you'll feel it the way our ancestors did, as a living, breathing storybook written in light. So let's begin where all great stories do, not just by looking up, but by truly seeing. Long before telescopes or satellites, the Babylonians turned their eyes skyward, not just to admire the stars, but to decode their secrets. Their astronomers, known as the Chaldean sky watchers, didn't merely observe, they recorded, calculated, and prophesied. The night sky was their library, every flicker of light a page in a cosmic manuscript. At the heart of their celestial knowledge were the Enuma Anu Enlil tablets, 70 clay tablets filled with meticulous observations stretching back over 700 years. These weren't just scientific records, they were divine messages. A comet streaking past Jupiter, a warning of drought, Venus rising brightly in the east. A sign of coming war, the Babylonians believed the gods spoke through the stars, and it was their duty to listen. What's astonishing isn't just their belief, but their precision. Without modern instruments, they tracked planetary movements with uncanny accuracy, predicting eclipses centuries in advance. They divided the sky into 12 sections, laying the groundwork for the zodiac we still use today. But here's the twist, their astronomy wasn't just about omens, it shaped their entire society. Kings delayed battles based on celestial warnings, farmers planted crops according to the phases of the moon. Even the layout of their cities mirrored constellations, binding earth and heaven together. Consider the story of King Amasajuka, whose reign was foretold by the motion of Venus. When the planet appeared in a specific position, his advisors declared the gods favored his rule. For 21 years, his decisions from lawmaking to harvests were guided by the stars. Was it superstition? Perhaps, but buried in those clay tablets are patterns we now recognize as early planetary science. The Babylonians didn't just see random lights, they saw order, cycles, a universe that repeated itself. And in that repetition, they found meaning. So the next time you glance at a horoscope or check a weather app, remember, you're walking in the footsteps of those ancient stargazers. They may have called it divine will, but their legacy is something far more enduring. The unshakable human urge to find patterns in the chaos, to turn the unknown into a story worth telling. While the Babylonians saw the stars as divine messages, the ancient Egyptians envisioned the night sky as something far more intimate, a goddess stretching her star-studded body across the heavens. Meet Nut, the celestial mother who swallowed the sun each evening and gave birth to it again at dawn. This wasn't just poetry, it was their way of explaining the cosmos, a daily drama of death and rebirth painted across the sky. In Egyptian mythology, Nut was more than a goddess, she was the sky itself. Her fingers and toes touched the four corners of the earth, her spine the Milky Way. Each night she devoured the sun god Ra, cradling him through the underworld until he emerged from her womb at sunrise, renewed and victorious over darkness. But this cycle wasn't just mythic spectacle, it mirrored the rhythms of life along the Nile. The river's annual floods, the crop's growth, even the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife, all were tied to Nut's eternal dance. Nowhere is this cosmic vision clearer than in the Dendera Zodiac, a breathtaking bas-relief carved into the ceiling of a temple dedicated to Hathor. This intricate map of the heavens isn't just a collection of constellations, it's a snapshot of the Egyptian universe. Here, Nut arches over the earth, surrounded by Deccan's 36 star groups used to track time through the night. The zodiac's circular design mirrors the cyclical nature of their beliefs, where time wasn't linear but a never-ending loop of renewal. What's remarkable is how practical this mythology was. Priests used Nut's movements to create star clocks, marking hours by which decans crossed the meridian. The alignment of temples like Abu Simbel ensured sunlight pierced the inner sanctum only on the pharaoh's coronation day, binding human rule to celestial order. Even the pyramid's air shafts point directly at stars sacred to Nut, turning tombs into gateways for the soul's ascent. So when you hear that the Egyptians worshipped the sky, remember they weren't just telling stories. They were building a cosmic clock, a theological compass, and a philosophy of eternal return, all woven into the body of a goddess who still stretches above us, silent and radiant, just as she did 5,000 years ago. High above the eastern horizon, two stars burn brighter than the rest: Vega, the shimmering weaver girl, and Altair, the steadfast cowherd. But to ancient Chinese astronomers, these weren't just celestial bodies. They were star-crossed lovers forever separated by the Milky Way, their tale etched into the heavens as a warning and a promise. This is the legend that birthed the Kixi Festival, a night when magpies bridge the cosmos to reunite them, and its roots stretch far deeper than romance. The story begins with Xinu, the weaver girl, daughter of the celestial empress. Her skilled hands wove the clouds themselves, crafting robes of sunset hues and rainbows. But when she fell in love with Niulang, a humble cowherd from the mortal world, the empress struck them apart with her hairpin, carving the Silver River, what we call the Milky Way, between them. Yet their love proved so pure that even the heavens relented. Once a year, on the seventh night of the seventh moon, magpies would form a bridge so the lovers could meet. What's fascinating is how this myth intertwined with the rhythms of the earth. The Kixi Festival didn't just celebrate love, it marked the end of summer's toil. Farmers knew when Vega and Altair shone brightest, the monsoon rains would soon give way to harvest. Women prayed for Xinu's skill in weaving, while young girls left melons beneath the stars, hoping to overhear the lovers' whispers, a practice that evolved into matchmaking traditions still observed today. Look closer, and the astronomy behind the legend reveals ancient ingenuity. The stars' positions signaled seasonal shifts. Vega's zenith in late summer meant silkworms, vital for weaving, would soon spin their cocoons. Altair's rise coincided with cattle breeding. Even the magpie's role held meaning. Their migration patterns peaked in seventh moon, making them natural symbols of connection. So while the tale tugs at heartstrings, it also reflects a profound truth. For the Chinese, the cosmos was a mirror of earthly life, a celestial almanac where love, labor, and the land moved in perfect harmony. Tonight, if you spot Vega and Altair glowing across the Milky Way, remember, you're witnessing not just a love story, but an ancient dialogue between stars and soil. Some say Orion was the greatest hunter who ever lived, a giant whose footsteps shook the earth, whose arrows never missed their mark. but pride, as the stars tell us, has a way of catching up to even the mightiest. The Greeks saw his story written across the heavens, not as a single constellation, but as two, Orion forever fleeing the sting of Scorpius, their celestial dance marking the turning of the seasons. It began with a boast. Orion, drunk on his own skill, declared he would hunt every beast on earth until none remained. The goddess Artemis, patron of the wild, bristled at this arrogance. Some versions say she sent the scorpion herself. Others whisper it was Gaia, the earth goddess, who unleashed the creature to punish his hubris. Either way, the outcome was the same: one swift strike and the hunter fell. Yet death wasn't the end. Zeus, moved by Artemis' later grief or perhaps the sheer drama of the tale, placed both rivals in the sky. Now, as Scorpius rises in summer, Orion flees below the horizon, only to return triumphant in winter when the scorpion sets. But this wasn't just poetic justice, it was a cosmic clock. Ancient Greek farmers knew when Scorpius dominated the night sky, it was time to shelter livestock from venomous creatures. Orion's return signaled the safe return of game for hunting. Even the stars' positions held meaning. Orion's belt pointed to Sirius, the dog star, whose rising marked the brutal heat of summer. The myth, in other words, was an almanac. What's haunting is how the constellations seem to play their parts. Scorpius' curved tail still poised to strike, Orion's raised club forever frozen in defense. The night sky doesn't just tell their story, it performs it season after season, reminding us that some rivalries outlast even the gods. To the Vikings, the universe wasn't just a vast emptiness, it was a living, breathing tree. Yggdrasil, the world tree, towered over their myths with roots digging into the underworld and branches cradling the stars. This wasn't mere symbolism, it was their map of existence, connecting 9 realms from the icy land of the dead to the fiery home of the gods. And hidden in its bark and leaves were secrets that shaped Viking life, from navigation to destiny itself. Imagine standing on a longship under the northern sky. To most, the stars above would be a glittering mystery, but to a Viking navigator, they were the leaves of Yggdrasil, guiding them across treacherous seas. The North Star, fixed like an unshakable branch, anchored their course. They called it Leiðarstjörna, the leading star, and trusted it as a sailor trusts a lighthouse. Other constellations became landmarks in their celestial forest. Orion's belt transformed into Frigg's distaff, a tool linked to the goddess of fate, spinning the threads of mortal lives. But Yggdrasil was more than a navigational aid, it was the axis of fate. At its base sat the Norns, 3 weirder sisters who carved runes into the tree's trunk, dictating the lives of gods and humans alike. Every scratch in the bark was a new twist of destiny, every falling leaf an omen. Even their concept of time was tied to the tree. They believed the rooster Gullinkam would crow from its branches to herald Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. What's striking is how this myth mirrored Viking pragmatism. Their sagas often spoke of sailors reading the whispers of Yggdrasil, a poetic way to describe how they used star positions, bird flight patterns, and even the color of the sea to navigate. The tree wasn't just a spiritual idea, it was a practical framework for understanding a chaotic world. So when you look up at the Big Dipper tonight, picture it as a branch of that great cosmic tree, still stretching across the sky as it did 1,000 years ago. The Vikings may be gone, but Yggdrasil endures a silent witness to humanity's endless quest to find meaning in the stars. Deep in the jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya didn't just grow maize, they worshipped it. To them, corn wasn't merely a crop, it was the flesh of the gods, a divine gift that sustained life itself. At the center of this belief stood the maize god, a deity born from the cosmic turtle's shell, whose death and resurrection mirrored the very cycle of planting and harvest. But his story doesn't unfold alone. It's written in the stars, specifically in the dance of the Pleiades, that shimmering cluster whose disappearance and return marked the sacred rhythms of the earth. Every spring, as the Pleiades vanished behind the sun, the Maya knew it was time to clear their fields. These stars weren't just celestial markers. They were the maize god's companions, vanishing into the underworld as he did, only to emerge reborn when the cluster reappeared in the eastern dawn. Temple carvings at Palenque show this cosmic choreography in stunning detail. The god's body sprouting cornstalks as the Pleiades rise, his resurrection timed to the star's return. It was more than myth, it was agricultural science encoded in sacred narrative. The precision is staggering. Mayan astronomers tracked the Pleiades' movements with such accuracy that their calendar aligned planting seasons to the cluster's helical rising when it first becomes visible just before sunrise. They noticed something modern agronomists confirm. Planting when the Pleiades reappeared yielded stronger crops as soil moisture and temperature reached ideal levels. Their Dresden Codex even includes a table predicting the cluster's position across decades, proving this wasn't guesswork but meticulous observation. What's haunting is how the myth reflects real-world stakes. In the Popol Vuh, the maize god is dismembered like harvested corn, his bones the seeds buried to bring forth new life. The Pleiades' disappearance symbolized this burial, their return his triumphant rebirth. Failed to read these signs correctly and famine followed. The stars weren't just guides, they were partners in survival. So next time you see the Pleiades shimmering like scattered seeds across the sky, remember, you're glimpsing an ancient dialogue between Earth and cosmos, where myth and science merge to keep civilizations alive. The Maya didn't just tell stories, they listened to the heavens and in that silence found the secret of growth itself. Among the most spectacular myths of the cosmos is the Hindu tale of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the Milky Ocean. Picture this, gods and demons locked in an eternal struggle, joining forces to churn the primordial waters using a mountain as the rod and a serpent as the rope. Their goal, to extract the nectar of immortality, Amrita, hidden in the ocean's depths. But what emerged wasn't just a potion, it was the Milky Way itself, spilling across the heavens like a river of spilled light. This wasn't merely a story of divine teamwork. Every twist of the myth holds cosmic significance. The mountain, Mount Mandara, became the axis mundi, the pivot between heaven and earth. The serpent Vasuki coiled around it symbolizes the ecliptic, the sun's path through the sky. Even the treasures that surfaced before Amrita, the moon, the goddess Lakshmi, the wish-fulfilling cow mirror celestial bodies and their influences in Vedic astrology. The moon became Chandra, governing emotions. Lakshmi's radiance was tied to Venus, the planet of prosperity. Each element was a piece of a grand astrological puzzle. But the most astonishing detail, the myth reflects an ancient understanding of precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis. The churning's back and forth motion mirrors the cyclical shift of the heavens over millennia, a phenomenon Hindu astronomers documented long before Western science named it. The Milky Way, in this context, isn't just a galaxy, it's the spilled essence of that primordial ocean, a reminder that the universe itself is in constant motion, churning chaos into order. Even today, the myth lives in rituals. During Kumbh Mela, millions bathe in sacred rivers, reenacting the Amrita's descent to Earth. Astrologers still reference the churning when interpreting planetary alignments, seeing cosmic tension as a catalyst for transformation. The gods and demons may have faded into legend, but their celestial dance endures, written in the stars and flowing through the heavens, as timeless as the Milky Way's glow. Look up on a clear night in the southern hemisphere, and you might notice something unusual, not a constellation of bright stars, but a shape carved from the darkness itself. This is the Emu in the sky, an aboriginal celestial masterpiece formed by the Inca gaps between the Milky Way's starlight. Unlike Western constellations that connect dots of light, this ancient Australian tradition reveals its wisdom in the shadows, where cosmic dust clouds outline the graceful neck, body, and legs of a giant emu stretching across the heavens. For the Aboriginal peoples, this wasn't just a clever pattern. It was a seasonal clock, a storytelling canvas, and a hunting guide woven into the night. When the emu's shape appears low on the horizon during autumn evenings, it signals the start of egg-laying season for real emus on the ground. The higher the emu climbs in the sky, the closer the eggs are to hatching. By tracking its position, elders could predict the best times to gather eggs, a vital food source with astonishing precision. Some rock engravings, like those in Ku Ring Guide Chase, mirror the emu's celestial posture, proving this knowledge wasn't just observed but ritually honored. But the emu's tale runs deeper than survival. In Dreamtime stories, the celestial emu is often linked to creator beings. One version tells of a selfish emu who hoarded water until a wise lizard speared it, releasing the life-giving liquid into the land. The dark patches in the Milky Way, that's the emu's spilled blood, a reminder of balance and generosity. Other stories describe the emu as a messenger, its shifting form carrying warnings or wisdom between the spirit world and the living. What's truly remarkable is how this dark constellation reveals a different way of seeing. Where others saw empty space, Aboriginal astronomers perceived narratives and practical tools. The emu's orientation even helped guide long-distance travel. Its beak points to water sources during certain seasons. Modern astrophysics now confirms the dark patches are dense molecular clouds, stellar nurseries where new stars are born. In a beautiful twist, the emu in the sky isn't just tracking earthbound birds, it's gazing toward the birthplaces of stars themselves. So the next time you're under a starry sky, try looking beyond the bright points. Sometimes the most profound stories aren't written in light, but in the sacred spaces between. For the Polynesian voyagers, the ocean wasn't a barrier, it was a highway, and the stars were their road signs. Picture a double-hulled canoe cutting through the vast Pacific, guided not by compasses or maps, but by the steady glow of Hokulea, the star we call Arcturus. To modern eyes, the distance between Tahiti and Hawaii seems impossible to cross without instruments. Yet Polynesian navigators did it routinely, reading the heavens with such precision that Hokulea wasn't just a point of light, it was a beacon marking the exact latitude of Hawaii. When the star passed directly overhead, they knew they'd arrived, but star positions were only part of the story. These wayfinders mastered a symphony of celestial clues. They memorized the rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, each acting as a mental compass. The Polynesian sky was divided into star paths, with constellations like Manaiakalani, the Hook of Maui, our Scorpius signaling direction. If Hokulea vanished behind clouds, navigators turned to Maui's Hook or the Pleiades, known as Makali, whose tight cluster pulsed like a celestial metronome, helping them maintain course. What's astonishing is how they intertwined astronomy with environmental intuition. They read ocean swells like fingerprints, detecting distant islands by how waves refracted around them. The flight patterns of birds, especially the golden plover, which migrates between Hawaii and Tahiti, served as living arrows pointing the way. Even the color of the clouds hinted at land. A greenish tint might mean sunlight reflecting off shallow lagoons. This wasn't just navigation, it was a dialogue with nature where every element, stars, waves, wildlife spoke in a language only the trained could understand. The revival of these techniques in the 1970s proved their brilliance. When the Hokulea canoe sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti in 1976 using only traditional wayfinding, it silenced skeptics. Modern GPS might tell you where you are, but Polynesian navigation tells you where you belong, threaded into the cosmos, part of a web of knowledge stretching back centuries. So when you spot Arcturus tonight, remember, you're seeing more than a star. You're witnessing an ancient GPS, a celestial anchor, and a testament to human ingenuity that turned the boundless Pacific into a pathway home. High in the Andes, where thin air makes the stars burn brighter, the Inca saw more than just points of light. They saw the silhouettes of sacred animals woven into the blackness between them. These weren't constellations as we know them, but dark constellations, vast cosmic shapes formed by the dust lanes of the Milky Way. One of the most revered was the llama, a sprawling celestial beast whose dark outline stretched across the galaxy. To the Inca, this wasn't just a pattern, it was a divine shepherd, its celestial fleece holding the power of rain and fertility. When the llama dipped low in the sky during the dry season, priests knew it was drinking water from the earth, soon to release it as life-giving rain. But the heavens weren't just home to shadowy creatures. At the heart of Inca cosmology blazed Intai, the sun god, whose golden face warmed the empire and dictated the rhythms of life. While the dark constellations guided earthly cycles, Intai governed the grandest of events, the solstices. At Machu Picchu, the Temple of the Sun stands as a testament to this devotion. Its windows align so precisely that during the June solstice, sunlight pierces the stone like a blade, striking a ceremonial niche where the emperor himself would sit, bathed in Intai's approving glow. The December solstice, meanwhile, marked the return of the sun's strength, celebrated with rituals where mirrors reflected sunlight to ignite sacred fires. The contrast between these celestial forces reveals the Incas' genius. The dark constellations, like the llama or the snake, were the unseen guides, the quiet, rhythmic pulse of nature. Intai was the blazing conductor, the source of all authority and energy. Together, they formed a cosmic balance, a duality that mirrored the Inca world itself, earth and sky, shadow and light, the mundane and the divine. Even today, as the Milky Way arches over Machu Picchu's ruins, you can almost hear the whispers of priests tracking the llama's path, feel the anticipation as solstice light slices through ancient stone. The stars may not speak to us as they did to them, but their legacy lingers, a reminder that the cosmos was never just something to observe, but to converse with, to worship, to rely upon. In the oldest epic ever written, Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk, stands at the edge of the known world, staring into the mouth of a tunnel so vast it swallows the sun. This is the path through the twin peaks of Mashu, guarded by beings straight from a star map. The Scorpion men, half human, half scorpion, their very existence woven into the fabric of Mesopotamian astrology. Towering taller than cedars, with eyes that blaze like molten bronze, they aren't just monsters, they're celestial gatekeepers, standing sentinel where heaven meets earth. The Scorpion men's role in Gilgamesh's journey isn't just mythic drama, it's a cosmic metaphor. In Babylonian astronomy, their scorpion tails mirror the constellation we call Scorpius, which marks the sun's lowest point in the sky during winter solstice. Just as Gilgamesh must pass them to enter the sun's subterranean path, the sun itself had to navigate this zodiacal gate each night, dying at dusk and resurrecting at dawn. The Scorpion men, then, embody the boundary between mortality and divinity, a test Gilgamesh ultimately fails when he loses the plant of immortality to a serpent's theft. But look deeper and their symbolism becomes even richer. The epic describes their terror is awesome, their glance is death, echoing the Mesopotamian belief that Scorpius governed transitions, birth, death, and the afterlife. When Gilgamesh pleads with them, they relent not out of mercy but because they recognize the sun god Shamash's favor. This detail ties back to real celestial events. Scorpius rises just before the sun in late autumn, a time linked to mourning rituals in ancient Babylon. The stars, like the Scorpion men, were both judges and guides. What's haunting is how this ancient narrative mirrors humanity's eternal struggle. Gilgamesh seeks what the stars themselves possess, cyclical renewal. Though he never gains immortality, his story endures, just as Scorpius still rises in our night sky, guarding the sun's path as it did 5,000 years ago. The irony is poetic. The hero's quest failed, but the Scorpion men's legacy didn't. They remain silent and steadfast, reminding us that some gates aren't meant to be crossed by mortals, only by the sun, the stars, and the stories we tell about them. To the ancient Celts, time wasn't measured in sterile numbers but in the living breath of the forest. Their calendar didn't follow the rigid sun-centric rhythm of Rome. Instead, it pulsed to the silver heartbeat of the moon, with each of its 13 cycles paired to a sacred tree. This was more than a way to track days. It was a cosmic dialogue where birch, rowan, ash, and oak became celestial markers, their roots tangled with lunar lore and druidic wisdom. Take the mighty oak, ruler of the midsummer month. When the moon swelled full in its boughs, the Celts believed the tree's spirit reached its zenith, channeling the sun's fiery energy into earthly abundance. Druids gathered beneath these giants, collecting mistletoe with golden sickles as the moon cast its glow, not just for ritual, but because they knew the plant's potency peaked under this specific lunar phase. The oak wasn't just a tree, it was a bridge between earth and sky, its growth rings echoing the cycles above, but the calendar's true brilliance lay in its flexibility. Unlike solar years, which forced nature into arbitrary boxes, the Celtic system adapted. The Alders month, for instance, marked the time of flooding, its wood impervious to water, a sign to prepare for swollen rivers. Willow's moon signaled healing season when bark was stripped under waning moonlight for pain-relieving teas. Each tree's traits, whether the hawthorn's protective thorns or the apple's sweetness, mirrored the social and agricultural tasks of its assigned lunar cycle. The stars played their part too. Druidic astronomers mapped the silver wheel, a celestial track linking tree months to constellations. When the Pleiades sparkled above the Ashes month, it was time to forge tools. Ash wood, flexible yet strong, was best cut under these stars. They used dark month aligned with Orion's rise, a reminder of mortality and rebirth. Yew berries toxic, yet the tree itself nearly immortal, its branches rooting into new life. What's haunting is how this knowledge resurfaces in modern science. Studies now show willow bark harvested during its lunar month contains higher salicin levels, the compound behind aspirin. Oak acorns planted under their corresponding moon phase germinate faster. The Celts weren't just poets, they were meticulous observers who understood that time isn't linear but a spiral, where earth and sky forever dance to the same silent rhythm. So next time you pass a birch grove or an elderberry thicket, pause. You're not just seeing trees, you're glimpsing fragments of an ancient lunar language, one that whispered secrets of when to sow, when to reap, and how to live in harmony with the cosmos' quiet pulse. Across the sea from China, where Vega and Altair danced their annual reunion, Japan's skies whispered a similar tale, but with threads of its own cultural silk woven into the stars. The Tanabata festival, celebrated every 7th night of the 7th month, mirrors the Kixi legend, yet unravels into something uniquely Japanese. Here, Orion, the weaving princess, isn't just a celestial figure but the embodiment of Amaterasu's loom, her shimmering thread said to be the very fabric of the Milky Way. Tensions between duty and desire, tradition and rebellion pulse beneath this starry romance. While the Chinese Xinu wove clouds for the gods, Orihim's craft held earthly consequence. Her father, the Sky King Tente, relied on her to weave the robes of the deity's garments that maintained cosmic order. When she abandoned her loom for love with the cowherd Hikoboshi Altair, the heavens fell into chaos. The punishment was the same, a river of stars between them, but the Japanese version adds a haunting twist. The magpie's bridge forms only if the skies are clear. Rain and the lovers must wait another year. This wasn't just poetic fate, it reflected Japan's rainy season, where July storms often obscure the stars, tying human hope to the whims of nature. The festival's rituals reveal even deeper layers. In China, Kixi was a private affair. Women prayed for needlework skill in quiet courtyards. But Tanabata erupted into public revelry, with streets hung with tanzoku, colorful paper strips where wishes flutter like trapped starlight. The most elaborate celebrations bloom in Sendai, where bamboo branches sway under thousands of handwritten dreams, from children's hopes for good grades to silk merchants' prayers for thriving trade. The connection to weaving endures. Some workshops still pause production on Tanabata, allowing looms to fall silent in homage to Oriheim's neglected craft. What's mesmerizing is how both cultures grafted celestial patterns onto earthly livelihoods. In China, Vega's zenith marked silkworm harvests. In Japan, Tanabata coincided with the start of weaving season for kimonos. The stars didn't just inspire love stories, they timed the very hands that threaded gold into obus or dyed indigo into fabric. Modern astronomers note something poignant. Vega's intense blue-white glow, visible even through light pollution, made it a natural beacon for weavers working late into the night. The star wasn't just a metaphor, it was a lamp in the darkness, guiding both shuttle and heart. So when you next spot Vega blazing high in the summer sky, remember, you're seeing not one story but many, a tapestry of traditions where love, labor, and longing are stitched together across cultures. The loom may change, but the thread remains the same, a shimmering strand connecting Earth to the heavens, one wish at a time. The Aztecs didn't just watch the sun rise, they believed they were witnessing a miracle that required blood to sustain it. According to their legends, the world as we know it exists only because the gods performed the ultimate sacrifice, plunging themselves into fire to create the fifth sun, the era we inhabit today. This wasn't just mythology, it was written into the very stones of their empire, most famously in the massive calendar stone, a 24-ton slab that doubles as both a cosmic clock and a testament to divine self-destruction. The myth begins in darkness. Before the fifth sun, 4 previous worlds, or suns, had already been destroyed, each collapsing under its own imbalance. The first fell to jaguars, the second to hurricanes, the third to fire rains, and the fourth to floods. By the time the gods gathered at Teotihuacan to create a new era, they knew the stakes. This sun would need more than light to survive. It would need sacrifice. 2 gods stepped forward, the proud Tecusistecatl and the humble Nanahuatzin, a disfigured deity covered in sores. When the moment came, Tecusistecatl hesitated before the sacred flames, but Nanahuatzin leaped without fear, transforming into the sun. Enraged by his rival's courage, Tecusistecatl followed, becoming the moon, but the sun refused to move without an offering of blood. That's when the other gods made their grim choice. To set the sun in motion, they cut out their own hearts, feeding its hunger with divine life force. This act established the central tenet of Aztec cosmology: nothing living could endure without sacrifice. The calendar stone carves this belief into stone. At its center glows the face of Tunatia, the sun god, his tongue a sacrificial knife, demanding the very blood that keeps him alive. Surrounding him are the 4 previous suns, their doom a warning that the fifth sun, too, will one day perish unless humanity upholds its duty. This myth wasn't just symbolic, it shaped Aztec society. Priests performed ritual heart extractions not out of cruelty but necessity, mirroring the gods' original act. Even warfare transformed into a sacred duty. Captives became tributes to nourish the sun, their deaths ensuring dawn would break again. The sun's path across the sky wasn't just astronomy, it was a daily validation that their sacrifices worked. Modern scholars note a chilling accuracy in their observations. The calendar stone's inner rings precisely track Venus's cycles, while its outer symbols align with solar eclipses. The Aztecs didn't just fear the sun's demise, they calculated it, believing their rituals could stave off cosmic collapse. So the next time you feel the sun's warmth, remember, in Aztec eyes, that heat wasn't just nuclear fusion. It was the lingering breath of gods who burned themselves alive to create a world, and the echo of a people who truly believed humanity's survival depended on giving back, drop by crimson drop, what the cosmos had given them. In the dusty plains of Mali, the Dogon people have guarded a celestial secret for centuries, one so precise it defies explanation. Long before telescopes confirmed its existence, their oral traditions described Sirius B, the invisible companion star to bright Sirius A, with uncanny accuracy. They called it Po-Tolo, the smallest seed star, and claimed it was made of a metal heavier than iron, orbiting Sirius every 50 years. Modern astronomy later verified these details. Sirius B is a white dwarf, unimaginably dense, completing its orbit in 50.1 years. How did the Dogon know? Their star lore runs even deeper. Dogon priests speak of Nomo amphibious beings who descended from Sirius to bring wisdom to humanity. These entities allegedly revealed the star's secrets in intricate sand drawings, showing Sirius A and B in elliptical orbits, a configuration Western science only mapped in the 19th century. Skeptics argue the Dogon might have learned these details from outsiders, but their isolation and the antiquity of their rituals suggest otherwise. Their entire agricultural calendar aligns with Sirius's movements. Planting begins when the star reappears after hiding behind the sun, a practice dating back millennia. Meanwhile, far to the south, the Zulu people were reading the heavens with equal precision, not for cosmic mysteries but for survival. Their star maps, passed down through Sangoma's spiritual healers, charted the southern skies as a practical almanac. The Pleiades, known as Isi Limla or the digging stars, signaled the time to prepare fields when they rose just before dawn. Orion's belt, called Inquenquezi, guided winter hunting when it dominated the night sky. But their most striking tradition involves Canopus, the second brightest star. Zulu elders taught that when Canopus hovered low on the horizon at dusk, the first rains were near, a prediction so reliable farmers still use it today. What binds these traditions is their seamless blend of myth and science. The Dogon didn't just know about Sirius B, they wove it into their cosmology as a spiritual anchor. The Zulu didn't merely observe Canopus, they saw it as the eye of a celestial herdsman watching over earthly cattle. Both cultures transformed astronomical observation into a living dialogue between earth and sky, where every star held dual meaning, a physical marker and a sacred messenger. Modern astrophysics might explain the mechanics of white dwarfs or stellar positions, but it can't replicate the intimacy these cultures shared with the cosmos. When a Dogon elder points to Sirius and whispers of Po-Tolo's weight, or a Zulu farmer scans the horizon for Isi Limla's glow, they're not just stargazing. They're reading a letter from the universe, one penned in light and dust, addressed to those patient enough to decipher it. In the myths of ancient Persia, no creature soared as majestically or mysteriously as the Simurgh, a colossal bird whose wings blotted out the sun and whose feathers shimmered with the colors of dawn. Said to live for 1700 years before immolating itself in flames, only to rise anew from its own ashes, this mythical phoenix wasn't just a symbol of rebirth, it was a celestial bridge, its life cycle mirroring the cosmic dance of stars like Vega, the brilliant beacon of the summer sky. Zoroastrian priests saw profound connections between the Simurgh and the heavens. In their cosmology, Vega wasn't merely a star, it was Tishtria, the divine archer whose battles with the drought demon Apausha brought life-giving rains. But the parallels ran deeper. Just as the Simurgh cycled through death and renewal, Vega's rising and setting marked the turning of agricultural seasons. When it appeared in the east after winter's absence, farmers knew the time had come to prepare their fields, trusting that the earth, like the mythical bird, would awaken once more. The Simurgh's fiery resurrection also echoed Zoroastrian fire rituals, where sacred flames symbolized the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Temples aligned their altars to catch Vega's first light during the summer solstice, blending celestial and earthly fire in ceremonies meant to strengthen the divine order. Even the bird's legendary nest, perched atop the tree of life, found its counterpart in the night sky. Some scholars suggest it represented the constellation Lyra, with Vega as the gleaming jewel at its heart. What's haunting is how this myth transcended cultures. The Simurgh's Greek counterpart, the phoenix, shared its rebirth cycle. Yet while the phoenix was solitary, the Simurgh was communal. Persian poets like Attar depicted it as a wise teacher, gathering 30 birds, a nod to lunar cycles to seek enlightenment. The name itself hints at this duality. Simurgh blends the Persian words for 30 and bird, weaving astronomy into linguistics. Tonight, if you spot Vega blazing in the sky, imagine the Simurgh's wings unfurling across millennia. Its story a reminder that even stars must fade to shine again, and that destruction in the cosmic scheme is never an end but a prelude to light. High in the Himalayas, where the air is thin and the stars seem close enough to touch, Tibetan Buddhism weaves a celestial bond between earth and sky through the Lungta, the wind horse. This mythical steed doesn't gallop across plains but soars through the heavens, carrying prayers printed on colorful flags to the realm of the gods. Yet this isn't just spiritual poetry. It's a cosmic survival manual, one that ties the fate of individuals and communities to the movements of stars and planets. The Lungta flags, strung across mountain passes and monastery rooftops, are more than symbols, they are celestial maps. Each color corresponds to a direction, element, and astrological force. Blue for the sky and Jupiter's expansive energy, white for air and the moon's calming influence, red for fire and Mars' protective power, green for water and Mercury's fluid intellect, and yellow for Earth and Saturn's grounding stability. When the wind lifts these prayers, it doesn't scatter them randomly. It syncs their vibrations with the universe's rhythm, aligning human hopes with celestial currents. Astrological precision shapes their placement. Monks consult Tibetan lunar calendars, which blend Indian and Chinese systems to determine auspicious days for hanging flags. Certain constellations, like the Pleiades or Orion, are considered celestial protectors. Their presence in the night sky amplifies the Lungta's power. A flag raised when the North Star is brightest, for instance, is believed to anchor stability, while those tied during meteor showers carry wishes faster to the heavens. Even the direction matters. Flags facing east harness the dawn's renewing energy, while westward ones draw strength from the setting sun's wisdom. The wind horse itself embodies this cosmic connection. In Tibetan astrology, it represents the human soul's journey through the 12-year animal cycle and the 28 lunar mansions. When a person's Lungta is weak, marked by misfortune or illness, monks perform rituals to replenish it, often during eclipses or planetary alignments. They'll chant under specific stars, visualizing the wind horse's mane scattering obstacles like comet tails clearing cosmic dust. Modern scholars note parallels between these rites and quantum entanglement theories, where prayer flags act as nodes in a vast, invisible network linking human intention to celestial patterns. What's profound is how this system acknowledges both chaos and order. The wind horse doesn't promise control over destiny but offers navigation tools for life's storms. Like a sailor reading stars to cross a turbulent sea, Tibetans trust the Lungta to harmonize their struggles with the universe's grand design. So the next time you see prayer flags fluttering against a Himalayan sunset, look closer. Those rippling colors aren't just clothes. They're a bridge between earth and sky, a silent conversation between mortal hearts and the cosmos' infinite whisper. Among the Hopi people of the American Southwest, the night sky holds a story not of warriors or lovers, but of a quiet, wise weaver spider grandmother or Kokianguti. She didn't wield thunderbolts or command armies. Her power lay in her ability to spin the very fabric of existence. According to legend, she wove the cosmos itself from strands of her own silk, stretching threads between the stars to create order from chaos. And if you look closely at Orion's belt, you'll see her handiwork. Those 3 bright stars aren't just a hunter's weapon, but the loom upon which she crafted the universe. This myth isn't just about creation, it's a lesson in balance and interconnection. Spider Grandmother didn't work alone. She taught the Hopi to weave not just blankets and baskets, but relationships between earth and sky, people and nature, the seen and unseen. Her webs mirrored the patterns of constellations, and her teachings emphasized that every tug on a single thread rippled across the whole design. When drought struck the mesa, elders would point to Orion's alignment, reminding the people that spider grandmother's web had frayed, urging them to restore harmony through ceremony and stewardship. The practical wisdom in this tale is astonishing. Hopi weavers still replicate cosmic patterns in their textiles, embedding star maps and sacred geometry into every design. The migration lines in their basketry, for instance, echo the path of the Milky Way, a reminder of their ancestors' journey guided by celestial signs. Even children's games carried the lesson. String figures woven between fingers like miniature constellations taught them to see the sky as a living blueprint. What's haunting is how modern science echoes this ancient insight. Astronomers now know the universe is filled with vast filaments of gas and dust, cosmic webs connecting galaxies, much like spider grandmother's strands link the stars. The Hopi didn't have telescopes, but their stories mapped truths we're only beginning to quantify. So the next time you gaze at Orion's belt, try seeing it not as a weapon but as a loom, and remember the weaver whose threads still hold the world together. Deep in the frozen landscapes of Finland, where winter nights stretch endlessly beneath shimmering curtains of northern lights, there echoes an ancient tale of an artifact so powerful it could grind out endless fortune, the Sampo. Described in the Kalevala, Finland's national epic, this mystical device wasn't just a mill or a treasure chest. It was the beating heart of the cosmos itself, forged by the smith god Ilmarinen from the feathers of a swan, the milk of a celestial cow, and a single grain of barley. But here's the twist. Many scholars believe the Sampo wasn't merely a physical object. It was a poetic cipher for the aurora borealis, its swirling colors mirroring the very mechanism that brought prosperity to the land. The Kalevala's descriptions are tantalizingly vague. The Sampo could churn out salt, grain, and gold, its lid spinning like a celestial wheel. Some verses suggest it was anchored to the many-colored vault of heaven, while others claim it stood on a copper mountain, a possible metaphor for the way the northern lights crown Finland's peaks. When the hero Väinämöinen steals the Sampo, it shatters into pieces, scattering its magic across the land. This dramatic moment might encode an astronomical event, the dispersal of a particularly vivid aurora, its tendrils fragmenting like glittering shards. The Finns, whose survival depended on harsh winters giving way to fertile springs, may have seen the Sampo's cyclical destruction and renewal as a divine promise that light would always return to banish the darkness. But the connection runs deeper than metaphor. Finnish mythology is steeped in celestial observation. The northern lights, or revontulate foxfires, were said to be sparks flung by a mythical fox's tail as it dashed across the snow. Shamans interpreted the aurora's patterns like a celestial loom, weaving messages from the spirit world. The Sampo's grinding motion mirrors the slow turn of the stars around Polaris, a reminder that time itself was measured by the heavens. Even Kalevala's meter, a steady trochaic rhythm, mimics the pulsating dance of the aurora, each line a streak of green or violet light across the poetic sky. Modern science adds a fascinating layer. The Sampo's description aligns with neutron stars, incredibly dense celestial bodies that grind out radiation as they spin. Could the Kalevala's poets have glimpsed something fundamental about the universe's mechanics? Or was the Sampo simply a way to explain the inexplicable, the way light could conjure abundance from frozen earth? Either way, its legacy endures. Finland's national identity still draws strength from this myth, a reminder that even in the darkest night, magic waits just beyond the horizon, ready to spin fortune from the void. So when you next witness the northern lights, imagine the Sampo's lid turning overhead, its gears hidden in the stars still grinding, still gifting the world with wonder. In the cold reaches of Slavic mythology, where the sky itself was a battlefield, two sisters stood as sentinels of the sun, Zoria Utraniaea, the morning star, and Zoria Vetraniaea, the evening star. These daughters of the sun god Dajbog didn't just mark the passage of time, They held the fate of the world in their hands. Every dawn, Utrenier unlocked the gates of heaven to release the sun's chariot, and every dusk, Vetrenier guided it safely back, ensuring the cosmic order remained unbroken. But their duty wasn't just ceremonial. Legend warned that if the sisters ever faltered, the monstrous serpent Zime would devour the sun, plunging the world into eternal night. This celestial guardianship wasn't a solitary task. It was part of a grander mythic tapestry, one woven with the thunderous threads of Perun, the storm god. While the Zoria sisters maintained the sun's rhythm, Perun battled the forces of chaos overhead, his lightning strikes seen as divine skirmishes against the serpent's allies. The Slavs believed thunderstorms weren't just weather. They were Perun's wrathful clashes with Veles, the serpentine god of the underworld, who constantly sought to drag the sun into his watery domain. The crack of lightning, that was Perun's axe splitting the sky. The rumble of thunder, the echo of Veles' retreat. The interplay between these myths reveals a profound understanding of celestial cycles. The Zoria sisters' vigilance mirrored the precise movements of Venus as it appeared as both morning and evening star, while Perun's storms coincided with summer's peak, when the Milky Way was most visible, arching across the heavens like a cosmic battlefield. Rituals reflected this duality. Villagers left offerings to the Zorias at dawn and dusk, often red cloth or flowers to mimic the sun's hues, while blacksmiths forged axe pendants in Perun's honor, wearing them as talismans against chaos. What's striking is how these stories persisted in folk traditions long after Christianity's arrival. Farmers still whispered to the morning maiden when planting crops, and sailors invoked Perun's name when storms arose. The sisters' duality even found echoes in later saints like Paraskeva Pyatnitsa, who inherited their solar associations. Meanwhile, Perun's thunder merged with Elijah the prophet's biblical storms, proving that some celestial truths were too powerful to fade. So the next time you witness dawn's first light or feel the air crackle before a storm, remember, you're glimpsing fragments of an ancient celestial drama where goddesses hold back the darkness and gods ride the lightning, forever keeping the serpent at bay. Beneath the endless expanse of the Mongolian steppe, where the horizon stretches unbroken in every direction, the sky isn't just a canopy, it's a living deity. The nomads call it Tengri, the eternal blue sky, a force so vast it cradles the stars like a shepherd tending his flock. For the shamans who traverse these windswept plains, the night sky isn't a static map but a pulsating network of spirits, each star a distant fire in the great camp of the cosmos. This wasn't mere poetry, it was the foundation of survival. The movement of Orion's belt signaled when to move the herds, while the Pleiades rising marked the time to seek winter pastures. Every twinkle held intention, every constellation a voice whispering secrets to those who knew how to listen. Tengri's domain wasn't just above, it permeated everything. The shamans, or Bura, acted as intermediaries, their rituals blending celestial observation with earthbound pragmatism. When a child was born, they'd scan the sky for omens, tracing the child's future in the alignment of stars. A shooting star wasn't just debris burning up, it was a spirit descending to deliver a message. Even the great Khans, like Genghis, claimed their authority from Tengri himself, declaring their conquests were written in the stars long before they unfolded on the ground. The sky wasn't a backdrop to history, it was the author. What's mesmerizing is how this belief system mirrored the nomads' way of life. Just as they moved with the seasons, the stars above followed their own migratory paths, constellations circling the celestial pole like herds around a central encampment. The North Star, known as Altan Hados or Golden Stake, anchored the heavens just as the central tent pole anchored their gers, the circular felt homes that mirrored the dome of the sky. The Milky Way became the Spirit's Road, a luminous trail guiding souls to the afterlife, its path shifting with the seasons like the nomad's own journeys. Modern astrophysics reveals something poignant. The clarity of Mongolia's night sky, unpolluted by city lights, allowed these observers to detect subtle celestial phenomena. They noted star rain, meteor showers with uncanny precision, tying them to periods of spiritual renewal. The red hue of Mars wasn't just a color, it was the fire of war, a warning to prepare for conflict. Even the auroras, rare this far south, were seen as Tengri's cloak rippling in the wind, a sign of divine favor or displeasure. So when you stand beneath the open sky, try seeing it as the Mongols did, not as an empty void, but as a grand, breathing entity. The stars aren't just points of light, they're the campfires of ancestors, the eyes of spirits, the silent guides of a people who navigated the earth by reading the heavens. The eternal blue sky endures, as boundless as it was 1,000 years ago, still whispering to those willing to look up and listen. No goddess ruled both heaven and hell quite like Inanna, the Sumerian queen of love and war. Her most famous myth, the harrowing descent to the underworld, wasn't just a tale of divine drama. It was Mesopotamia's way of explaining a celestial phenomenon that bewitched early astronomers, Venus's mysterious retrograde cycle. For 8 days each year, the planet disappears from the night sky, only to re-emerge in the east as the morning star. To the Sumerians, this wasn't mere orbital mechanics, it was Inanna's journey through death and rebirth written in the stars. The myth unfolds with chilling precision. When Inanna resolves to visit her sister Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld, she prepares meticulously, adorning herself with 7 sacred items, lapis lazuli beads, a golden ring, a measuring rod, and more. Each represents a celestial body, with scholars noting these correspond to the 7 classical planets visible to the naked eye. As she passes through the underworld's 7 gates, she's stripped of 1 item at each, mirroring Venus's gradual fading from view. By the time she stands naked before Ereshkigal, the planet has vanished entirely, swallowed by the sun's glare in its inferior conjunction. What happens next reveals the myth's deeper astronomical layers. Inanna is killed and hung on a hook, a haunting image that parallels Venus's stationary pause before retrograde. After 3 days, she's resurrected through divine intervention, ascending back to the heavens just as Venus reappears. The number 3 isn't arbitrary, it mirrors the planet's 3-day period of invisibility. Even the myth's resolution holds cosmic significance. Inanna must send a substitute to take her place in the underworld, foreshadowing how Venus's evening star phase replaces its morning star identity after retrograde. But this story wasn't just stargazing poetry. The descent of Inanna shaped real-world rituals. During Venus's disappearance, priests performed lamentations, reenacting the goddess's death. Temples like Yoruk's Inner complex aligned their gates to Venus's reappearance points, turning architecture into celestial calendars. The myth also encoded agricultural wisdom. Planting began when Venus returned as the morning star, its light promising fertility. Modern astronomers confirm the Sumerians tracked Venus's cycles with jaw-dropping accuracy, their cuneiform tablets detailing its 8-year pentagram pattern across the sky. What's haunting is how this ancient narrative captures Venus's duality. Inanna ruled both love and war, just as Venus dazzles at dawn but vanishes into darkness. Her descent isn't just a myth. It's a celestial roadmap reminding us that even the brightest lights must journey through shadow to be reborn. So when you next spot Venus glowing low in twilight, remember, you're witnessing not just a planet, but a goddess mid-stride, forever dancing between life and death, heaven and hell. In the warm Pacific darkness, where ocean waves whisper against volcanic shores, the Hawaiian creation chant of Cumulipo unfolds, not as a mere story, but as a celestial genealogy woven from starlight and sea foam. This 2,000-line chant, recited for generations before being written down in the 18th century, traces the birth of the universe from primordial darkness into a world where every creature, from the tiniest reef fish to the tallest coconut palm, shares ancestry with the stars. At its heart lies a radical idea. Life didn't just emerge on Earth. It descended from the heavens with constellations like the Pleiades, known as Makale, acting as both ancestors and midwives to creation. The chant begins in profound silence, a time called Po, the endless night before dawn. From this void, the first living things emerge in pairs: the coral polyp and the starfish, the sea urchin and the tide pool, each couple mirroring celestial counterparts. Scholars note these pairings aren't random. They reflect the Hawaiian lunar calendar, where certain nights were sacred to specific sea creatures based on the stars overhead. When the chant describes the birth of the humpback whale, it coincides with the rising of Makale, the Pleiades cluster, whose appearance in late October marked the start of the Makahiki season, a time of plenty when fishing was restricted to allow stocks to replenish. The whales, like the stars, were seen as navigators, their migrations mirroring the Pleiades' journey across the sky. What's breathtaking is how precisely the chant maps biological and astronomical cycles. The spawning of the palalo worm, which happens like clockwork just after the full moon in summer, is tied to the position of the constellation Kailo, our Scorpius. The chant describes the worm's emergence as the stars pulling the threads of the sea, a poetic nod to how tidal forces governed by the moon trigger this event. Even the hierarchy of creatures, from simple invertebrates to complex mammals, parallels the sequential birth of stars in Hawaiian astronomy, where older constellations like Hoculaire Arcturus are considered ancestors to younger ones. The Cumulipo's brilliance lies in its duality. It's both a creation myth and a scientific ledger, encoding generations of observational wisdom. When Hawaiian fishermen avoided harvesting certain shellfish during Makale's zenith, they weren't just following tradition. They were adhering to an ancient understanding of celestial-triggered spawning cycles. Modern marine biologists have since confirmed many of these patterns, proving the chant's ecological accuracy. The Pleiades' reappearance really does coincide with the peak spawning of mullet, a staple food fish, just as the chant describes. Perhaps most moving is how the Cumulipo blurs the line between myth and memory. When it speaks of the slime that birthed the stars, it echoes the very astrophysics we now understand, that the elements composing our bodies were forged in stellar furnaces. To the Hawaiians, this wasn't metaphor but genealogy. The chant's closing lines, which link chiefly bloodlines directly to celestial beings, remind us that every time we gaze at Makale's shimmering cluster, we're not just seeing stars, we're meeting our eldest ancestors, the ones who sang the world into being from the belly of the night. In the mists of Avalon, where legend and cosmos intertwine, the Lady of the Lake emerges not just as a mystical enchantress, but as a celestial guardian, her silver-sheathed sword Excalibur glinting not with mere metal but with starlight. To reimagine this Arthurian tale is to see Britain's lakes as liquid mirrors, their still surfaces reflecting the heavens so perfectly that the Milky Way itself seems to dip into the waters. When the lady raises Excalibur from the depths, she isn't just gifting a weapon. She's drawing a fragment of the cosmos into mortal hands, a blade forged from the same stuff as the stars. The symbolism runs deeper than romance. Ancient Britain's revered lakes as gateways to the otherworld, their depths aligning with the silver river of the Milky Way in winter, when the galaxy's arc mirrored the sinuous curves of Britain's sacred springs. Excalibur's famed scabbard, said to prevent fatal blood loss, echoes the celestial river's life-giving role, just as the Milky Way was believed to nourish the earth with astral dew. Even the sword's name holds cosmic weight. Excalibur may derive from the Welsh Caladfulch, meaning hard lightning, a nod to the fiery trails of meteors streaking across the night sky like a king's sudden, decisive strike. What's haunting is how this myth mirrors real astronomical practices. Neolithic monuments like Stonehenge align not only with solstice sunrises but with lunar standstills over nearby water. The lady's act of presenting the sword at the stroke of destiny mirrors the way certain stars like Sirius, were observed rising just before dawn to herald pivotal moments: harvests, battles, coronations. The sword's eventual return to the lake, flung by Arthur's dying hand, completes the celestial cycle, metal dissolving back into starlight, earthly power yielding to cosmic order. Modern stargazers can still witness this dialogue between water and sky. On clear nights when the Milky Way arches over Glastonbury Tor, said to be Avalon's gateway, its reflection in the flooded Somerset levels creates the illusion of a sword-shaped bridge between worlds. The lady's gift endures not in steel, but in the silent pact between earth and heavens, where every glint on dark water whispers of kingdoms lost and waiting, of blades yet to be lifted from the stars. High in the rugged mountains of Armenia, where the sky presses close against jagged peaks, stand silent sentinels carved with scales and coiled tails, the Vishap dragons. These massive stone monuments, some towering over 15 feet tall, aren't just relics of myth. They're celestial maps, their jagged outlines mirroring the sinuous forms of constellations like Draco, the cosmic serpent winding through the northern sky. To the ancient Armenians, these dragon stones weren't mere decorations, they were boundary markers between earth and heaven, their positions aligning with sacred springs and mountain passes where the stars seem to touch the land. The connection runs deeper than symbolism. Each Vishap bears cryptic carvings, zigzags like lightning, circles resembling celestial bodies, undulating patterns echoing the Milky Way. Scholars note that their placements aren't random. Many cluster near high-altitude observatory sites where prehistoric astronomers tracked the moon's cycles. One particularly striking stone near Mount Aragat points directly to the summer solstice sunrise, its dragon's maw framing the first light like a portal. Others align with the rising of Vega or Deneb, key stars in Armenian navigation myths. The dragons, it seems, were both mythic guardians and practical waypoints in a sprawling astral network. What's haunting is how these stones encode a dual cosmology. The Vishaps often depict serpents drinking from vessels, a motif echoing the Babylonian Tiamat's chaos waters, yet uniquely Armenian in its tie to local legends of dragons controlling mountain springs. The stars above weren't just distant lights, they were reflections of terrestrial forces, their movements dictating when ice would melt or rivers swell. Farmers knew to plant when Draco's tail curved over certain stones, while shepherds avoided high pastures when the dragon's eyes, the stars Eltonin and Rastaban, dipped below the horizon, signaling coming storms. Modern archaeology reveals even more layers. Some Vishaps mark subterranean water channels, their bases hollowed to amplify the sound of flowing water, a sonic echo of the celestial rivers, meteor showers that streak across the night sky during peak activity. The dragons, it seems, didn't just guard physical springs but served as conduits between earthly and cosmic waters. Even their material carries meaning. Most are carved from volcanic basalt, a stone believed to capture the essence of both fire, the stars, and water, the lifeblood of the land. The most enigmatic Vishap of all stands near Lake Sevan, its surface etched with a spiral pattern matching the trajectory of the pole star Thuban, which ruled the northern sky when the pyramids were built. This dragon doesn't face the horizon but points upward, as if straining toward the constellation it embodies. Local lore claims that on certain nights, when the Milky Way arcs just so, the stone hums with the voice of the sky itself. Whether myth or meteorology, one truth remains: these dragon stones are more than art. They're a language written in stone and starlight, waiting for those who still know how to read the heavens' ancient script. In the lush forests of the Cherokee homeland, where the rhythm of life pulsed with the turning seasons, storytellers gazed upward to find wisdom in the stars, not just in the grand sweep of the Milky Way, but in the sharp, coiled shape of a rattlesnake glittering against the night. This wasn't merely a celestial decoration, it was a lesson in balance, a reminder that even the most feared creatures held a sacred place in the great cycle of life. The Cherokee saw this constellation, which some associate with our Scorpius, as a guardian of thresholds, its tail buzzing like thunder when the seasons shifted, signaling when to plant and when to harvest. The myth begins with a warning. Long ago, the rattlesnake was a being of pure venom, striking without mercy until the Creator intervened, lifting it into the heavens and tempering its power. There, its fangs became stars, its rattle the Pleiades, and its coiled body a boundary between the warmth of summer and the chill of winter. When the constellation rose high in the sky, the Cherokee knew the earth would soon grow fertile, the snake's descent mirroring the retreat of frost. But its position came with a covenant. Humans must tread carefully, respecting the snake's domain, or risk disrupting the delicate equilibrium between life and death. What's striking is how deeply this celestial lesson was woven into daily life. Cherokee farmers timed their planting to the rattlesnake's appearance, sowing corn when the constellation first peaked above the horizon at dusk. Herbalists collected certain roots only when its stars were brightest, believing the snake's celestial gaze infused them with healing power. Even children learned the myth as a way to understand reciprocity, how the venom that could kill also cured when used wisely, just as the constellation's rise brought both warmth and the need for caution. Modern astronomers note something profound in this tradition. The Cherokee rattlesnake's rattle stars align with the timing of the heliacal rising of Antares, Scorpius's heart, which marked the beginning of the growing season across many indigenous cultures. The snake's sinuous form also traces the ecliptic, the sun's path, making it a natural celestial clock. But for the Cherokee, it was more than a timekeeper, it was a teacher. The myth reinforced that balance wasn't passive, it required active respect. Leave the first berries for the animals and the earth would provide. Harm the snake unnecessarily and the seasons might turn against you. Tonight, if you find Scorpius low in the southern sky, try seeing it through Cherokee eyes, not as a hunter's weapon, but as a coiled guardian, its stars humming with the old, unbroken rhythm of give and take. The rattlesnake doesn't just remind us of danger, but of the pact we share with all things, to move through the world with care, to listen when the heavens whisper, and to remember that every creature, even the most feared, has its place in the grand design. These ancient celestial tales might feel like dusty relics of the past, but their fingerprints are everywhere in our modern world, from the zodiac signs in your horoscope to the names of NASA Mars rovers. Consider the constellations we still use today, nearly unchanged from Babylonian star maps carved into clay tablets over 3 millennia ago. When astrologers talk about a fiery Aries or a practical Taurus, they're echoing the same celestial archetypes that guided ancient farmers and kings. Even skeptics can't escape the legacy. The word disaster comes from the Latin disastrum, literally bad star, a remnant of the belief that planetary alignments dictated earthly chaos. Look to the stars and you'll find mythology woven into the very fabric of modern astronomy. NASA, a Perseverance rover, doesn't just carry scientific instruments. Its name harks back to the Roman virtue perseverantia, a nod to how ancient cultures personified the cosmos. The Hubble Space Telescope's stunning images of nebulae bear names like the pillars of creation, evoking the same sense of divine wonder that led the Babylonians to see gods in the swirling dust of the Milky Way. And when scientists study supernova, they're witnessing the same celestial fireworks that the Maya recorded as the smoke stars, heralding the death and rebirth of time itself. Cultural festivals still dance to these ancient rhythms. Japan's Tanabata, where wishes flutter on bamboo branches, is a direct descendant of the Chinese Kixi festival, both tied to Vega and Altair's celestial reunion. Mexico's Dia de los Muertos aligns with the Pleiades zenith, just as it did for the Aztecs, who saw the star cluster as a portal for ancestral spirits. Even modern Halloween traces its roots to Samhain, the Celtic festival marking when the veil between worlds thinned, a belief born from watching the Scorpius constellation sink below the horizon, symbolizing the sun's journey into the underworld. Perhaps most surprising is how these stories shape cutting-edge science. The search for exoplanets often focuses on stars like Vega, long worshipped as celestial weavers because their youthful energy suggests fertile ground for new worlds. Archaeoastronomers use indigenous star lore to locate forgotten temples, like how the Maori legend of Mayan Pleiades led researchers to a buried observatory in New Zealand. And when the Dogon tribe's knowledge of Sirius B baffled astronomers, it sparked debates about oral traditions preserving advanced astronomy for millennia. The lesson is clear: our ancestors didn't just tell stories about the stars, they encoded survival, philosophy, and communal memory into the night sky. Today, whether we're checking horoscopes for fun or launching satellites to study supernova, we're still conversing with those ancient voices. The constellations haven't changed, but their stories keep evolving, proof that celestial wisdom isn't locked in the past but written in light, waiting for each generation to add its own verse. At first glance, the star lore of ancient cultures might seem like charming fairy tales, but what if these myths held kernels of truth that modern science is only now uncovering? Take the Dogon people of Mali, who spoke of Sirius B centuries before telescopes confirmed its existence. This dense, invisible star orbits Sirius every 50 years, exactly as Dogon priests described in their sand drawings. Modern astronomers were stunned when they realized these oral traditions matched scientific observations. But here's the twist: the Dogon didn't just know Sirius B was there. They called it Potolo, a seed star made of impossibly heavy metal, eerily accurate for a white dwarf, a collapsed star so dense a teaspoon of its material weighs tons. Coincidence or something far more fascinating? Compare this to Hubble's groundbreaking images of the Orion Nebula, a stellar nursery where new stars ignite from cosmic dust. To the Maya, Orion wasn't just a hunter, it was a celestial hearth where the gods kindled new suns. Their Popol Vuh describes the Pleiades as a smoke cloud from this cosmic fire, aligning with our current understanding of how star clusters form within nebulae. The Greeks, meanwhile, saw Orion's belt as a smith's anvil, fitting, since we now know shockwaves from dying stars in this region forge heavy elements like iron. These cultures lacked telescopes, yet their metaphors captured astrophysical truths we've only quantified in the last century. Even the subtle details align in unsettling ways. The Babylonians tracked Venus's 8-year cycle with such precision their clay tablets could predict its positions millennia ahead. Today, we know Venus orbits the Sun 13 times for every 8 Earth years, a ratio the Babylonians encoded in their Venus tablet of Amasajuka. Similarly, Aboriginal astronomers mapped the Emu in the sky using dark dust clouds in the Milky Way, the same molecular clouds where modern telescopes now spot protostars forming. Indigenous stories called these clouds celestial rivers, carrying life-giving energy, while NASA infrared imaging reveals they're indeed pipelines of gas-feeding newborn stars. So how did ancient cultures glimpse cosmic truths without advanced tools? Some argue it was millennia of meticulous observation, watching star patterns shift across generations, noting how celestial events correlated with seasons or animal behavior. Others suggest lost technologies or even contact with advanced visitors, though most scholars find simpler explanations. Perhaps the answer lies in the human brain's knack for pattern recognition. When you spend nights tracing the same stars for centuries, subtle cycles emerge. A dimming star might become a dying god, a meteor shower, the tears of celestial beings. The real magic isn't just the accuracy, it's how these cultures wove cold celestial mechanics into vibrant, enduring stories that guided survival. The lesson here isn't that myth is science or vice versa, it's that both are languages describing the same universe. When Polynesian navigators steered by the star compass, they weren't just following dots of light. They were conversing with ancestors who'd mapped the sky's rhythms into song. Modern astronomers do the same when they name spacecraft after mythological figures or study supernova described in medieval star charts. The cosmos hasn't changed, only our tools for seeing it. Whether through Hubble's lens or the whispers of a shaman reading star paths, humanity's quest remains the same: to unravel the sky's secrets and find our place within them. Perhaps that's the greatest takeaway. These myths endure not because they got every detail right, but because they recognized something fundamental: that the stars aren't just objects but characters in a story we're all still telling. When a Dogon elder points to Sirius and a physicist analyzes its light spectrum, they're asking the same question in different dialects: what else is out there, and what does it mean for us? The answers may evolve, but the wonder, that's as eternal as the stars themselves. The night sky has never belonged to just one culture. It's a vast canvas where every civilization painted its dreams, fears, and wisdom. But today, these ancient star stories face extinction, vanishing faster than the languages that carried them. Indigenous cosmologies, refined over millennia, aren't just myths, they're living libraries of ecological knowledge, celestial navigation, and philosophical insight. When a Navajo elder forgets the chant that maps the journey of the hero twins across the Milky Way, or a Polynesian navigator no longer recalls how to read the star compass, we don't just lose stories, we fracture humanity's collective memory of the cosmos. Efforts to preserve these traditions are as urgent as they are innovative. UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage list now includes celestial know, how like the Mongolian practice of worshipping sacred mountains as cosmic pillars, or the Andean ritual of reading the Milky Way's dark constellations to predict weather patterns. These aren't symbolic gestures, they're lifelines. In Australia, the Living Sky Museum collaborates with Aboriginal elders to digitize star maps etched in songlines, transforming oral traditions into interactive 3D models that let users hear the emu in the sky's seasonal warnings. Meanwhile, the Maori Star Compass Project trains new generations in wayfinding using augmented reality, overlaying ancestral star paths onto modern smartphones. The stakes couldn't be higher. Indigenous astronomy often encodes survival data inaccessible to modern science. The Cherokee rattlesnake constellation's movements predicted frost dates more accurately than early almanacs, while Inuit moon phases tracked Arctic animal migrations with precision GPS can't replicate. When these systems fade, we lose more than folklore. We sacrifice time-tested frameworks for living in balance with nature. Digital archives are part of the solution, but true preservation requires reciprocity. Projects like the Zuni Pueblo's ethnoastronomy program pair astrophysicists with tribal historians, proving that protecting star stories isn't about freezing them in time, but letting them evolve through dialogue. What's emerging is a celestial renaissance, a fusion of ancient and modern, where high-tech tools amplify ancestral voices. In Hawaii, the Imiloa Astronomy Center uses planetarium shows to teach children how their ancestors sailed by the stars, while in Norway, Sami elders work with satellite engineers to document traditional aurora prophecies. These collaborations reveal a profound truth: the stars belong to everyone, but their stories belong to those who first learned to listen. As light pollution drowns out the night sky for a third of humanity, these preservation efforts become beacons, not just safeguarding the past, but illuminating paths forward where wisdom, no matter its origin, guides our way. You don't need a time machine or a degree in archaeology to tap into the celestial wisdom of our ancestors, just a curious mind and a few simple tools. Start with your smartphone. Apps like Star Walk or Sky View turn your screen into a portable planetarium, overlaying constellation names and mythological stories onto the night sky in real time. Point your phone at Orion, and suddenly you're not just seeing three aligned stars, you're witnessing the Babylonians' heavenly shepherd or the Cherokee's rattlesnake, its coiled form holding ancient warnings about seasonal balance. For a deeper dive, try Stellarium, which lets you rewind the sky to see exactly how the stars appeared during pivotal historical moments, like the night Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, or when Polynesian navigators first spotted Hokulea guiding them toward Hawaii. If you crave a more tactile connection, grab a notebook and start a moon journal. Track its phases like the Celts did with their tree calendar, noting how the waxing moon's energy might mirror your own creative surges, or how the waning phase invites rest, just as farmers once used it to time harvest. Sketch the shadows along the Terminator line, those craters and seas visible even to the naked eye, and you'll begin to understand how Galileo's first telescopic drawings revolutionized humanity's place in the cosmos. For an extra layer of meaning, pair your observations with lunar lore. The Maori named each night's moon phase to guide fishing and planting, while Hindu traditions link specific days to rituals for prosperity or healing. Nothing beats standing where ancient astronomers once did, feeling the same stones beneath your feet that aligned with solstice sunbeams thousands of years ago. At Chichen Itza, the Mayan pyramid of El Castillo transforms into a serpent of light during equinoxes, its shadowy triangle slithering down the steps, a spectacle modern visitors can witness just as priest astronomers did. In England, Stonehenge's summer solstice sunrise still draws crowds, but for a quieter experience, visit Newgrange in Ireland, where a narrow passage lights up with winter solstice dawn, illuminating spiral carvings that may represent cosmic cycles. Even lesser-known sites like Ohio's Serpent Mound or Peru's Chanquillo Solar Observatory offer intimate encounters with ancient sky watchers' precision. For those who prefer communal learning, join a local astronomy club or attend indigenous-led star parties. Many Native American tribes host public viewings where elders share constellation stories tied to land stewardship, like how the Lakota used the Big Dipper's position to predict buffalo movements. In Australia, Aboriginal guides offer star talks that decode the emu in the sky's seasonal warnings, blending astrophysics with 40,000-year-old survival wisdom. These experiences don't just teach you about the stars, they reshape how you see your place in a universe where every glint of light carries layers of meaning waiting to be rediscovered. The key isn't just observing, but participating. Try cooking a meal using celestial timing grill fish when the Pleiades rise, as Pacific Islanders did for optimal catches, or bake bread during a full moon when bakers once believed dough rose higher. Plant a garden by the zodiac like medieval monks, pairing lunar phases with seed types. Even urban dwellers can reclaim the night. Reduce light pollution by using warm-toned outdoor bulbs, or lobby for dark sky initiatives that preserve our collective right to wonder. The stars our ancestors relied on haven't gone anywhere. They're still there, whispering across millennia, asking only that we look up and listen. From the Babylonian clay tablets tracking Venus to the Cherokee rattlesnake constellation warning of seasonal change, these 30 celestial tales reveal a universal truth. Our ancestors didn't just observe the stars, they conversed with them. Every culture, whether under the scorching sun of the Sahara or the icy winds of the Arctic, wove the cosmos into stories that guided survival, shaped identity, and answered life's deepest questions. What unites these narratives isn't just their wonder, it's their wisdom. The night sky was humanity's first classroom, its first compass, its first storybook. The same stars that taught Polynesians to navigate oceans helped Maya farmers predict rains and whispered to the Dogon about invisible companion stars long before telescopes revealed them. These stories share a rhythm, a kind of cosmic pulse. Time and again, we see the heavens mirroring earthly cycles, birth and death, planting and harvest, chaos and order. The Aztec fifth sun rises from sacrifice, just as the Mesopotamian Inanna descends to the underworld and returns, echoing Venus's disappearance and rebirth. The Incan llama drinks celestial waters to nourish the land, while the Norse Sampo grinds out fortune like the aurora's shimmering dance. These aren't coincidences, they're proof of how deeply our ancestors felt tied to the cosmos. The stars weren't distant lights, they were teachers, allies, even ancestors. Yet there's another thread running through these tales: humility. The Cherokee rattlesnake reminds us that balance requires respect. Orion's fatal pride warns against defying natural order. The Zoria sisters guard the sun not through domination, but through vigilance and care. In an age of satellites and space telescopes, it's easy to forget that the sky once demanded our reverence. These stories bring us back to that awe, that sense of being part of something vast and mysterious. So tonight, step outside, look up, let your eyes adjust to the darkness, and for a moment see the sky as our ancestors did, not as a void to be conquered, but as a story still being written. Trace the threads of the Milky Way and imagine the Maori navigators following its path, or the Inca priests reading the Lama's shadow. Find Vega and remember the weavers of Japan and China who tied their fates to its glow. And if you're lucky enough to glimpse the Pleiades, think of the Maya farmers who planted corn by their light, or the Aboriginal elders who saw an emu in the spaces between. The stars are still speaking. The question is, are we listening? Share your own celestial stories in the comments: the constellation that guided you home, the meteor shower that made you gasp, or the family tale passed down under a starry sky. Because the greatest lesson these 30 tales teach isn't just about the past, it's about connection. However far our technology takes us, we'll always belong to the same sky that inspired the first storytellers to lift their eyes and wonder.